I don't know that I've seen somebody sweat about the proper pronunciation of a last name in quite some time just like that. Because I did warn your president, if you're going to misspell Schmittendorf, leave out any letter but the M. That's the critical one. Thank you so much for the honor of being here this morning. Thank you to your executive director, Kate, and your president, Ben. And if you don't know, I'm actually a stunt double fill-in guest speaker for you this morning for my good friend, Chris Naum, who is rightly focusing on some first family first challenges at home, and gave me the honor of asking me to fill in for him, and I certainly appreciate that. But I'm not going to talk on the subject that Chris was going to, although they will be very closely related and follow parallel lines. But I would never think that I could ever fill Chris's shoes. I just hope not to embarrass him by screwing up. So that's my goal for being here with you this morning. And they have the slides up for me. If you do know Chris Naum, you know that I am not him, and also I can't even grow a mustache, nor do I own a V-neck sweater. So that's Chris. My whole goal for being here with you this morning is simply, as I like to say, to change your hearts and your mind about the way that we look at both the challenges that we face and the solutions that are within our reach when it comes to volunteer retention and recruitment in our fire service. And what I want to share with you this morning is how the fire service is absolutely a volunteering opportunity like absolutely none other. And I need you to go away from our conversation this morning with a couple of key points. The first is, I need you to change our language. We need to keep the message positive. I need you to go away with a renewed commitment to volunteer retention and recruitment, ensuring not only the survival, but the absolute success of our volunteer fire service, not only here in Maryland, but across these United States. And lastly, as I'll share, I need you to go away with a sense of urgency. The clock is ticking. The clock is ticking for many of us who have served so long in our volunteer fire service, and we need to get on with the business of not only finding, but motivating, supporting, and training our replacements. That is my charge to you this morning. Let me ask you a question. Who here is a recruiter? Let me reframe the question. If you are not focused on retention and recruitment, what are you focused on? Absolutely nothing else matters. Everything else is what I refer to as the widgets of the fire service. We can either make important and timely investments in retention and recruitment, or we can continue to build beautiful new fire stations that we can't fill, buy multi-million-dollar fire apparatus that we can't staff, and awesome equipment that will go unused. So I'll ask you again, who here is a recruiter? We all need to be in this, and we need to be in this together. But the reality is there's plenty of competition out there, right? It's virtually unlimited. As we drive through our communities, you see the signs out front. Every civic and community organization is looking for volunteers today. Does your volunteer fire department logo appear on those signs as people enter and drive through your communities? Maybe, maybe not. Perhaps a suggestion, just a simple suggestion that can change the approach and the emphasis and the focus on your department. But my real question is, who should we be in competition with for those who are right for what we do? And I would argue virtually no one. And to put it politely, you know why? Because we get to do stuff and you can insert another S word there, we get to do stuff that absolutely no one else gets to do. Right? Think about it. In what other volunteering opportunity in our communities can you literally knock somebody's door down and they send you a thank you letter afterwards? We cut a hole in their roof, they'll bake us cookies. No other volunteering opportunity offers us the opportunity to have the impact in our communities, and most importantly, no other volunteering opportunity allows the community to have the impact that it does on us. This is a volunteering opportunity like absolutely none other. And there's a lot of things that make it very, very different. It's not just in time volunteering where you're going to fill sandbags down by the river to prevent the flooding. It's not once a month or once in a while going down to your local food pantry or your homeless shelter and feeding others. And it's also not like the National Guard, where yes, initially you volunteer, but after that you're compensated. It's different from volunteering opportunities in a lot of other ways. What other volunteering opportunity do we ask for a minimum of a long-term, but preferably a lifelong commitment right out of the gate? It's the equivalent of asking somebody to marry you on the very first date, is it not? And I don't know about you, but looking after these two, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't marry either one of them. But that's a different story. You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your, and I know what you were going to say, Joe, you can't pick your family, right? We've all heard that phrase before, we can't pick our family. I disagree in the sense that in the fire service, and especially in the volunteer fire service, that's exactly what we're doing, isn't it? What do we call each other? Brother, sister, and collectively the people at the firehouse, we refer to them as our second family, right? I half-jokingly tell people that I am living proof that you can teach a monkey to pull a bail back on a nozzle and get water out of it, half-jokingly. But can you teach everyone to be a trusted, trustworthy, respected, respectful, contributing member of our fire service family? Not necessarily. That's a value set. That's a skill set that is totally different from anything else that we teach or train for in the volunteer fire service. And if they don't have that value set of trustworthiness and integrity and respect for others, good luck teaching them anything. But if they do come to us as a respected, respectful, trusting, trustworthy, willing to contribute member of our fire service family, there is no limit as to what we can teach them. So this is one of the ways that I want you to change your attitude today. We need to stop trying to recruit firefighters, and we need to focus on recruiting family members, because that's what we are. We will live in that firehouse together for many, many years. We will enjoy each other's company through the best of times and through the hardest of times. And we do it together. That is our greatest strength. That is our greatest tool. And when used inappropriately, it's probably our greatest weapon as well against each other. And that's where we get into talking about retention. I refer to the Maltese cross as a universal symbol for instant acceptance. You agree? You can be walking down the street in any town, village, or city in the United States, and if you're wearing this on your chest and somebody else who wears it on their chest sees it, there's an instant connection, a minimum of a nod to acknowledge that we're in it together. But as we just witnessed here, it can either give you the keys to a firehouse or keys to the city. It's roadside assistance. It's a safe haven when we need it. And it's everything that we cherish. And we have to respect that. And most importantly, we need to teach the newest generation that they need to respect it too. I break down the term brotherhood or sisterhood or firehood, use gender generically, whatever you may call it, into 4 layers. The first layer is that branded layer. That's what we wear on our chest, and some of us even have it tattooed on our sleeve. That's the kind of brotherhood or sisterhood or firehood that maybe we share over an adult beverage, as sometimes might happen this week, right? But the reality is that sometimes it's easier to extend brotherhood to a fellow firefighter from another department, another city, another state, or another country than it is necessarily to extend brotherhood to those in our own firehouse. And that's something that we have to change. The next layer of brotherhood is core, and that's how we will treat each other within the firehouse. And establishing a baseline for human relations that we will not cross. But unfortunately, we see every day that sometimes we cross it too often. The next layer of brotherhood is what I call intrinsic. And intrinsic brotherhood says that when we're crawling down that proverbial dark, hot, smoky hallway, I will lay down right next to you. I will take the same beating and I will never leave you behind. That's what we promise to each other in intrinsic brotherhood. But the reality is many of us will never know how we react in that situation until we've been tested. And the fourth layer of brotherhood brings it all together. It's a combination of the first 3, but so much more. It's authentic brotherhood. That's the brotherhood that many of you in this room I know from experience and knowing you as friends. The type of brotherhood that we all grew up on. The type of brotherhood we were raised on. The type of brotherhood that we were taught. That we truly, truly take care of each other. Not just in the firehouse, not just on the fire scene, but outside all of that. You know it when you see it. We cherish it every day. You miss it when it's lost, and you also feel it when it's shoved in your back. But we need to get back to authentic, to real brotherhood. That's what will save the volunteer fire service in our communities, in our firehouses, and in the United States as well. And as my good friend Paul Combs does it better than anybody else, talks about how this absolutely owes us nothing. But if you devote yourself to it, it will give you everything. And let's face it, there's a dark side to what we do as well. That makes it a volunteering opportunity like none other. We are exposed to things as volunteer firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, and first responders that quite honestly no human being should ever have to be exposed to. But you know what I tell people all the time? I feel bad for those who don't get to carry a monitor on their belt or another device that alerts them that when I think I'm having a bad day or my life sucks, guess what? That little thing goes off and reminds me, shut your pie hole. You got nothing to complain about. That is not a burden, but a gift, and it's called the gift of perspective. I have had the honor of serving as the director of the Hero Tribute Project for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation for over 10 years. I was not at the last memorial, but I hope to be back next year. And in that experience, I interview the survivors, the families of fallen firefighters. And let me tell you, when you think you're having a bad day or your life sucks, all I have to do is think back to one story that one survivor shared with me during those times. I have interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of firefighter survivor families. I had a 4-year-old girl sing happy birthday to her daddy in the middle of an interview. If you want your heart pulled out of your chest, that's a great way to do it. I've interviewed more than half of the 19 Granite Mountain hotshot families, including a grandmother who spoke in the strongest Scottish brogue I'd ever heard, as she told me that she lost not one but 2 grandsons, 18 and 21 years old, and they found them embraced, wrapped in each other's arms as the fire went over the top of them. This is a difficult business. We focus so much on serving others, and we need to give equal, if not greater, emphasis on the people that we serve with as well. We give so much caring and compassion for those we serve, but so many times we leave that out of the equation with the people we serve with. And the first people that we need to be caring and compassionate for is us as individuals. You need to be caring and compassionate for yourself. I need to be caring and compassionate for myself, because that's the only way that we're going to survive this, and the only way that we're going to survive the trauma that we see, the things that we hear, we smell, we experience firsthand, the stuff that we literally physically get on us, is that we care and we're compassionate for each other, and we do it together. And the reality today is, despite the influence of technology, despite artificial intelligence, and I won't name names in this room, virtual reality, and all the advancements that we've made, at the end of the day, there's still no app for what we do. Our emphasis on the widgets of the fire service needs to transition on the one resource necessary to make all that other stuff work. And that's when we will start succeeding at both recruitment and retention. But it starts with an attitude, and it's as simple as this. We need to treat every single imaginable public interaction as a public service, public education, public relations, and a recruitment opportunity. And a recruitment opportunity. We have mastered public service. We're getting better at public education every day. We know we are, because we're going to less and less fires every day. And despite the thoughts of some, that's a good thing. Hopefully you have a good image and a relationship and a partnership with your community and its other organizations. But where we have not done as good of a job is identifying and taking advantage of every single public interaction as a recruitment opportunity. It starts with changing our attitude. 22 years ago, I wrote a document titled My 10 Commandments for Recruitment and Retention. Commandment number 1 is do the math. Think of our recruitment challenges in simple terms. So many fire chiefs, fire commissioners, and others that I speak to, they're rattling off numbers of how many new volunteers they think they need. Whether it's 5, it's 10, it's 20, or it's more, what you really need is one more volunteer, one at a time. Think about it, if every single one of your existing members recruited just one more member, what would be the mathematical impact on your department? I know that's high-level math, and I know it's early in the morning, but give me a number, right? It's double, right? Sometimes we get so focused we can't see the forest through the trees, right? We think of this enormous number, it's overwhelming, it's crushing us, but the reality is we just need one more volunteer, one at a time. Also in 2001, apparently I had this flurry of brain activity and not much since it, but I wrote a couple of forecasts, and I said, as the fire department struggles to be everything it once was to the community, individual firefighters also struggle to be everything that they once were to the fire department. I know that from personal experience. My time availability and also my commitment to, and actually my participation in what we do, has kind of been fluid throughout the years, right? But we have to acknowledge that. We have to prepare for it, and we need to make sure that we have steps in place to help people as your participation starts to fade, not kick them off what I call the retention cliff, but instead show your members, demonstrate to your members, and support your members in building a rope bridge to the other side so that they can continue their legacy of service. But in order to win at that, we need to diversify. This forecast that I also wrote in 2001 says that we need to create more opportunities for more people to volunteer less time. More opportunities for more people to volunteer less time. And I say the math of that is the job that used to take 10 people 10 hours a week to do now actually requires us to recruit 20 people who only have 5 hours to give you. We need to learn as organizations, as fire departments, to be as flexible with our members as we expect them to be with us. That's an opportunity for change in what we do and how we do it. Because the reality is, nobody ever signs up to be a volunteer firefighter with aspirations of one day being promoted to bingo chairman. Right? But here's the reality. Somebody needs to be the bingo chairman. And somebody needs to be the roads and grounds person. And somebody needs to be the treasurer. And you know what else somebody else needs to be? The recruiter. I can sympathize but not empathize with the fire chief or the fire company president who says, if I had more people, I could free somebody up to focus on recruitment and retention. Losing sight of the fact that if we focused on retention and recruitment all of the time, what's the potential outcome? Theoretically, we could end up with all the people we need to do all the jobs that need to be done. I'm here to change your hearts and your minds about the way that we look at both the problems and the solutions that we face in today's fire service. But you need to have a plan. A failure to plan is a plan to fail. We've all heard that, right? And if you don't have a plan for retention and recruitment in your department today, call me. I know a guy, right? But that's part of our challenge. We haven't been planning for this situation that we now find ourselves in. We've simply allowed it to happen around us, and too many of us have simply sat back and wallowed in the dismay that it's actually happening. We haven't kept up with the times. Think of all the advancements in technology, in radio communications, and fire apparatus and equipment. But have we kept up with the same pace as with the changes in our society and our communities as it relates to volunteer retention and recruitment? Not necessarily, because if we had, we wouldn't be having this discussion right now. So let's face it. And all of that starts with changing our language. This is something that I am, to put it politely, fired up about today. We need to keep the message positive. There was a news piece that was done just a couple of years ago that suggested that the volunteer shortage in one state could actually spread like wildfire across the country like a pandemic. Could you imagine a pandemic happening in the United States? That's unthinkable. The reality, though, is, as I like to say, recruitment and retention challenges are like any other emergency. They all start and end locally. If you don't know it, we get great support from the National Volunteer Fire Council, great organizations like your MSFA, many, especially in Maryland. Your county organizations and county government is directly engaged in supporting your recruitment and retention efforts. And they can build the broad-based awareness that volunteering opportunities exist in your community. They can give you the tools and education and support to be successful at it when you do it yourselves. But at the end of the day, nobody, not the MVFC, not the MSFA, not your county organization, and not even I, can do what I call the trench work for you. That's where the hand-to-hand combat of getting them in the door and keeping them there is won and lost. That is both your responsibility, your obligation, but most importantly, your opportunity You just need to get your head in the game. I feel sad for this volunteer fire department in Maine who put up these street signs around their community. I can appreciate the desperation that it took to put something like this out in the public, but we need to change our language. Not only do words like this of desperate and dire and help needed, and if you don't volunteer today, we're going to close tomorrow. Not only does that do absolutely nothing to help their recruitment efforts, it erodes confidence in their capabilities, and it erodes confidence in your and my capabilities as well. It's a detriment to our recruitment and retention efforts. We need to change our language, and we need to keep the message positive. As recent as this past week, there was an NPR news article where, amongst several other quotes, this happens to be one of them. But again, this does nothing to help our cause. This does nothing to help our case. We need to change our language, and we need to focus on the positive messaging. You know why? Because nobody wants to join the Titanic, desperate for volunteers fire department. We're going down, jump on board is not an effective recruitment message. And what happens too often is we're always looking at above the surface and blaming someone else for our retention and recruitment challenges. We're blaming society. We're blaming the economy. And what I hear the most, and so help me God if I hear it again, we're blaming these damn kids. Well, if anything about today's generation is true or accurate, who's responsible for that? I am, you are, we are, because we're the generations who raised them. And here's the reality, because I can tell you from experience of literally traveling around the country and spending physical time in dozens of firehouses across the country a year, there are exceptions to the rule about these generations. I know because I see them every day in our firehouses across the country. But whether it's today's generation or yesterday's generation or the generation before that, there's 5 generations in our life, in our workspace today. If any of the things we complain about the respective generations is true, you also, me also, I also have to be the exception to the rule about my generation. I can't be stuck on because that's the way we always did it. That's one of the things I need you to go away with, is a sense of urgency for getting on with the business of training our replacements. To me, the conversation, the language comes down to 2 words, need and want. 2 very, very different words. As I once again half joke, the number of people who need me in their life is an unlimited list. The number of people who also want me in their life might be a completely different list, if you know what I mean. So if you're going to use the word need, use it in this context. You need us. We want you. Think of the difference in how each of those words makes you feel. It's nice to feel needed, but it's awesome to feel wanted. And that's what we need to make our prospective volunteers, and most importantly, our existing volunteers, feel today. The need is clear. The want is not. And we need to demonstrate to them that we want them to join our ranks, and we want them to continue to serve as well. And yes, I finally actually made the t-shirts. That nobody wants to join the Titanic, desperate for volunteers fire department. We need to keep the message positive. We need to stop telling people all the reasons people aren't joining and focus on all the great reasons that they are. So when it comes to our recruitment messaging, here's the 3 priorities. Lead first and foremost with the awesome opportunities that we offer to get involved and make an impact on your community, others, and yourself. Follow up with the great benefits, whether they're tangible or intangible, and most often the intangible outweigh the tangible. And lastly, show them how easy it is to get started, and most importantly, show them how we're going to support them every step along the way. But you have to be committed to doing that as well. It can't just be hollow words. And then the last thing we want to talk about is the requirements and the expectations. I'm a firm believer in being clear in our expectations early and often, but don't lead with it. Don't lead with, oh my gosh, you have to take hundreds of hours of training and then in-house drills and all these meetings and fundraising and stuff like that. That's doing nothing for our cause. But if we do well at selling them, giving them the bug with the first 3 line items, that whole conversation about training requirements and the other participation requirements gets a lot easier, sounds palatable, and even achievable. And you know how you prove to them that it's achievable? Point around the room in your firehouse and show how everybody else has already achieved it, despite the very busy lifestyles that they have. We have living examples every day. And we all have to remember, whichever generation we identify with, that every single thing you do, you say, you wear, and especially today, you post, reflects on you, reflects on your organization, your fire department, the fire service at large, and it reflects on me too. I take this very personally. So please, please act accordingly. And when we think about the person that we want to belong to our fire service family today, I say look in the mirror. Think of the person you would want to serve with or literally may need to be saved by, and go out and get that person. And they're there. We just have to have the willingness, the wherewithal, the commitment, and the sense of urgency to go out and find them. I'm Tiger Schmittendorf, and I approve this message. Thank you very much.